I arrived at the Olympic Village, a sprawling complex bustling with athletes from all corners of the globe. The excitement in the air was palpable, and the anticipation of competing on such a grand stage filled me with both pride and nerves. As I settled into my room, an unshakable feeling of being watched crept over me. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone there, but there was nothing, just the whisper of the wind against the window. As I unpacked my bags, my roommate Sarah broke the ice with a nervous laugh. "Have you heard the rumors about this place being haunted?" she asked, her eyes wide with mischief. I chuckled, thinking it was a joke to scare the newcomers, but the serious look on her face told me otherwise. "People say they've seen things, heard things," she continued. Her voice dropped to a whisper, and I felt a chill despite the warm afternoon sun pouring through the window. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard footsteps echoing in the hallway outside our room. At first, I dismissed them as other athletes returning from late-night training sessions. But then the footsteps stopped abruptly, right outside our door, lingering for a moment before continuing down the corridor. I held my breath, my heart pounding in the silence. I wanted to believe it was nothing, yet a deep-seated instinct told me otherwise. The next morning, I woke up shivering despite the warmth of the weather. I rubbed my arms to ward off the chill and glanced at Sarah, who was already awake and wrapping herself in a blanket. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We both blamed the air conditioning, but in our hearts, we knew something was off. The air felt thick with an unsettling presence, as if the very walls were watching us. As the days passed, I noticed small items going missing. First, it was my lucky charm, a gift from my grandmother that I always kept in my pocket. Then, Sarah's hair tie vanished. We joked about the ghost having a penchant for trinkets, but the underlying fear was real. Each time something disappeared, I felt a tug of unease, as if we were being taunted by an unseen force. One evening, after a grueling day of training, I returned to our room to find a message scrawled on the bathroom mirror: "Leave before it's too late." My heart raced as I stared at the words, my mind scrambling for a rational explanation. I called Sarah over, and her face turned ashen when she saw it. "Who would do this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. It felt too personal, too real to be a mere prank. Determined to shake off the unease, I headed to the dining hall, hoping to lose myself in the familiar routine of a meal. But as I turned a corner, I caught sight of a shadowy figure at the end of the corridor. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving behind an eerie silence. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickened my pace, trying to outrun the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. That night, I was jolted awake by a cacophony of whispering voices. They seemed to seep from the walls, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. I lay frozen in bed, listening as the whispers swirled around me, my heart pounding in my chest. The voices seemed to rise and fall, forming patterns that were almost words, almost sentences. My mind spun with fear and confusion, trapped in the grip of an unearthly presence. The whispers grew louder, forming a single, chilling phrase: "Remember me." The words echoed in my mind long after the voices faded, compelling me to seek answers. I spent hours in the village library, sifting through old records and news articles. Finally, I stumbled upon a forgotten story: a promising athlete who had died under mysterious circumstances during a past Olympics. Her name had been overshadowed by scandal, her spirit left to linger in search of justice. The next morning, I awoke to an eerie silence. Sarah's bed was neatly made, her belongings untouched, but she was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as I searched the village, asking everyone I encountered if they had seen her. No one had. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the whisper of her presence. I felt a suffocating fear grip me as I realized I was truly alone. I reported Sarah's disappearance to the village officials, but they dismissed my concerns, suggesting she had left on her own. Their indifference infuriated me, fueling my determination to find her. I scoured every corner of the village, my senses on high alert for any sign of her. The ghost's presence loomed larger, an oppressive force that seemed to guide my every step. I felt her sorrow, her desperation, echoing through the halls. In a deserted part of the village, I finally confronted the ghostly figure. Her form was translucent, her eyes filled with a deep, haunting sorrow. She reached out to me, her voice a whisper in my mind, "Help me find peace." The plea resonated with a chilling clarity, and I realized she wasn't trying to harm us. She was reaching out, seeking someone who could hear her, understand her, and help her find rest. Determined to help, I delved deeper into the athlete's past. I discovered that her downfall had been orchestrated by a rival who had manipulated events to tarnish her reputation. The truth had been buried, her name smeared by deceit and betrayal. I realized that her spirit lingered because her story had never been told, her achievements overshadowed by scandal. She sought justice, a way to reclaim her legacy and find peace. With the help of a local historian, I gathered the materials needed for a ritual to honor the forgotten athlete and set her spirit free. We performed the ritual under the moonlit sky, surrounded by candles that flickered in the gentle breeze. As the ritual progressed, I felt her presence shift, a sense of calm washing over us. She stood beside me, her form glowing with gratitude, her sorrow finally lifting. The following morning, I awoke to find Sarah standing in our room, dazed but unharmed. Her eyes were filled with confusion, but she radiated an overwhelming sense of relief. She had no memory of where she had been, only a lingering impression of safety and gratitude. I embraced her, tears of joy mingling with the residual fear. It was as if she had been returned to me by a benevolent force, the ghost's final act of thanks. With the spirit at peace, the village felt different. The oppressive atmosphere that had plagued us lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and camaraderie among the athletes. Laughter echoed through the halls, the tension of the previous weeks forgotten. I felt a lightness in my heart, a new appreciation for the unity and spirit of the Olympics, now untainted by the shadows of the past. Before leaving the village, I visited the spot where I had first encountered the ghost. I stood in silence, feeling her presence one last time, a comforting reminder that she was finally at peace. The wind whispered through the trees, a gentle caress that spoke of gratitude and farewell. I whispered my own goodbye, knowing she would watch over us. Her story finally told, her spirit free. Back home, I shared the story of the haunted village with friends and fellow athletes. Many were skeptical, dismissing it as superstition or exaggeration, but others nodded knowingly, their eyes reflecting the shadows of similar experiences. I realized that the supernatural world lingered closer to us than we cared to admit, a reminder of the unresolved stories that echoed through time. The story of the forgotten athlete spread, her name finally restored to its rightful place in history. Her achievements were celebrated, her legacy acknowledged and cherished. The scandal that had tarnished her reputation was exposed, the truth finally emerging from the shadows. Her spirit, once lost and forgotten, now shone brightly, a beacon of hope and resilience. Though the village was no longer haunted, I sometimes felt a gentle presence during competitions, a whisper of encouragement and pride. I knew she was watching over us, cheering us on from beyond, her spirit entwined with the spirit of the Olympics. Her legacy lived on, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit.